This episode is rated M for mature audiences. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of the PFC Entertainment Network or any of the affiliates that make this show possible.
This is the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
And we welcome you to a very special edition of the Fatal Four-Way here on the PFC Entertainment Network. Along with Hollywood Q, Eric Scherer, and Brian Balf, I'm Jason Klaus. We certainly appreciate you tuning in here on a very special presentation of the show. This is a YouTube exclusive. So this is one of those reasons why I say if you have not done so already, you're going to want to hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button, and get notified each and every time a special presentation drops on the PFC Entertainment Network's YouTube channel. One of many extracurricular projects that we have here in the works here at the network, and this is one of them. I'm very excited. Kind of getting away a little bit from our natural format that you would see on ONTV, but you know, this is dropping the day before a pretty significant holiday, that being the 250th birthday of our great nation here. And so we wanted to do something kind of fun, kind of lighthearted, and one where we pull out all the stops. You know, when we're on the PFC network, there are literally no holds barred here. Gentlemen, it's good to see you. I know we're going to be looking at this list of the most patriotic professional wrestlers in history. But before we get there, we have to at least take some time here this week and look back on last weekend's premium live event that went down in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia of Champions. And it sounds like it went over very well over at the Balf household. So we do have a new king of the ring. We have a new queen of the ring, and we have a new undisputed WWE champion in the form of Sami Zayn winning a big triple threat match over Gunther and defending champion Cody Rhodes. Liv Morgan came out on the short end of the stick in the Queen of the Ring finals. It was Io Sky who would pick up the win, and in turn immediately announced that she will be challenging Morgan for the Women's World Championship at SummerSlam. From there, we saw kind of, in my estimation, kind of the upset of the night in terms of Seth Rollins beating Braun Breaker in a hellacious steel cage match. And Tiffany Stratton would retain the Women's United States title match, or title, I should say, over Jade Cargill. And Obafemi bulldozed his way to the king of the ring. And we may know here very shortly what his plans are going to be going into SummerSlam. Is it going to be a showdown with new WWE champion Sami Zayn, or is it going to be with World Heavyweight Champion Roman Reigns? We're going to go around the horn here real quick and let the guys give their takeaway on Night of Champions, the highlight of the night, the low light of the night, and things in between. Hollywood, let's start with you.
I think as far as overall show, it was it was, it was average. I think for me, the highlight of the show over Philly getting that ring after all the speculations of Brock Lesnar tossing him the match and all that nonsense. And I am so ecstatic that they went this route because when you wait, when you sit there and you wait and iron is hot, look at what's going on with Braun Breaker. See, now we have questions with Braun Breaker. Where does he go? We know where Femi is going now. So that's the thing. Like, when the iron is hot, man, strike, man. Yeah, I'm so happy that they are doing this with Amy Femi, and I'm hoping to God that he is going to choose Roman Reigns because to me that is a blockbuster match. That's a marquee match, and it kind of reminds me of SummerSlam when Brock Lesnar won King of the Ring, and he went and challenged. I mean, we're seeing the same thing here, so that's what I want to. That's what I want to see. As far as the rest of the show, I mean, I don't remember too much of it, but like, like I said, I didn't really care for the live match. I didn't really care for. I didn't really care for what else happened. Uh, Jade Cargill, I didn't really care for that match. I didn't care for the triple threat match was solid for what it was. And the only thing I can say about this whole Sami Zayn thing was if they were gonna do it now instead of waiting until WrestleMania because I got a feeling that they were gonna do this exact thing at WrestleMania. So now you have the questions on how long will Sami keep this title? I think it's gonna be on there. But my thoughts on this show entirely was just it was an over finish show for me. That's all it was an over finish show, and I'm super.
It's going to be real interesting to see how they do handle Oba Femi's King of the Ring. I mean, the dude is we're riding this wave of momentum that we haven't seen in quite some time. And Q, to correlate that to the last time we saw something like this was with Brock Lesnar in 2002, setting up the match with The Rock at SummerSlam. It was at the time, it was like, man, are they pushing this guy too fast, too soon? But as we've seen all these years later, that really was the perfect timing. I mean, you rode that momentum. We're seeing that now with Oba and the reaction that he gets, black and white, young and old, man, woman, and child. Like everybody in the crowd is doing the strut. Everybody is on the bandwagon. I kept waiting for Lesnar to show up at Night of Champions to cost Oba the match, to give Jay the win, and set up Jay versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. And I'll be straight up. I was there for that. I was totally fine with that. I can see the story leading up to that. But they're not going that route. They're going to continue to ride this wave of momentum for Oba Femi. I believe it should be Roman Reigns because Oba and Sami Zayn on paper, if Sami Zayn remains the champion going into SummerSlam, um, that's not a marquee match. I mean, that's like you already know what the hell is going to happen. At least with Roman and Oba, it's a toss up. You could go either way with this. Both guys are at the top of the mountain right now. Eric, what was your opinion of the Night of Champions PLE?
I guess about the same as Q already said. I don't love that I was right last week when I said they're obviously trying to give it to Sammy. Give it to him now. I don't want to give it to him at WrestleMania. If they really want to give him the belt, give it to him here in Saudi. And yeah, I hope Oba picks Roman Reigns. Even though Jason, you asked me last week, you said, is it too soon to already throw him at Roman to give him the King of the Ring and and give him Roman, but Sami Zayn would be a boring match. It'd be so predictable. If he doesn't squash him, then that takes so much credibility away from Oba. If Oba can squash Brock Lesnar, but he's going to have a tough match against Sami Zayn, that's not a good look.
I couldn't agree more.
So yeah, let's hope he picks Roman.
And the other thing is, and this is something that Brian and I were talking about before we came on the air here. They have to sell 2 nights of SummerSlam now. You know what I'm saying? And you have, I mean, much like what they're doing with WrestleMania, it's not just one big night anymore. It is 2 4-hour shows. And you have to, you have to stack both cards because there's only a concentrated percentage of people that are buying the 2-day tickets. A lot of people, and I did this last year when we were going out to Las Vegas. What night am I going to invest in? It's one or the other because I can't do both. And I knew as soon as Cena turned heel, I'm like, there's Sunday night's main event. So I got to go to Sunday night. I knew at that point. You don't really know right now with what they're doing. Number one, we don't have confirmation of the match as we're doing this now. We don't, if it is Roman and Oba, then obviously that should close out the entire weekend. That should be the Sunday night main event. But God bless America. Number one, am I not only hoping Sammy loses the title, I'm hoping he has a shorter reign than the Iron Sheik. I'm hoping he is a transitional champion to put that title somewhere else. Because look, and Eric, you alluded to this. Sami Zayn, if that match had not happened in Saudi Arabia, we would not be having this conversation. The fact of the matter is the dude is not nearly as over in America as what he wants to be. Not like he is over there. And the only reason why he is over there is because of his Muslim background, which I totally respect. But at the same time, you got to look at what this dude truly is. I'm not saying he's not talented. I'm just saying he's not world champion material. And I'm hoping he proves me wrong here. But I just don't see that happening. Brian, what's your takeaway from Night of Champions?
I think there were some surprises there. Like we didn't expect Oba to win. Storylines didn't make sense, but I think we're all happy he won. Last thing I want to see is Jay in another main event. Going into the main event, knowing it was all faces that won, I kind of expected it was going to be Sammy winning that one. It's kind of a, if I wouldn't have already had that idea in my head, I think it would have been a little bit more of a fun surprise, but I kind of expected it. Overall, I thought it was just kind of a ho-hum card, just kind of pushed storylines over, kind of like left some questions on the end. I think the big question is like we said, who's Oba going to choose? It only makes sense that he chooses Roman. That's the only one that sells a day of SummerSlam, unless there's somehow they can get a belt on Brock before then.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to do that. I mean, unless Lesnar comes in and decimates Sami Zayn at a SmackDown or something. And that's what I'm saying. Make him a transitional champion. Have that rubber match in Minneapolis for Lesnar's. A lot of speculation around Lesnar and his future. We've already seen him, quote unquote, retire once this year. And then, boom, he comes back in. But yet they're still saying that he's retired. Like, make it make sense. What the hell are we doing right now? But if they were to use Sammy as a transitional champ, okay, then I will dial it back a little bit. But man, if he goes into Minneapolis as the defending WWE champion, and I don't care who he winds up wrestling, I'm pissed off about it. Because even Cody Rhodes, as critical as I've been about Cody Rhodes, I would much rather see him go into SummerSlam as the WWE champion. As much as I am not a fan of this guy, He has done an amazing job with the title based on how he's been booked. And I realize I'm not the demographic, for the American Nightmare. I get that. But I also see what is. Unfortunately, it takes something like Sami Zayn winning the title for it to come into crystal clear focus for me. But here we are with it. I said that the worst match of the night was the women's United States title match between Tiffany and Jade. It felt very clunky. Their timing was off. The chemistry was off. This was the match I really felt like they could have done without. And given that 9.5, 10 minutes and disperse it to the other three matches that were on the pay-per-view card that did not air on ESPN. Q, would you agree with me that was the low light of the night, or was there another match that you just were not feeling it?
Oh, that was definitely the worst match of the night. They don't click together, and it's crazy because I don't know what's going on with. I know Jay is not, the best in ring talent, but I don't know what's going on with Tiffany. Tiffany seems to be a little bit off as well because she didn't really have good matches with Julia, and Julia's excellent. You know, and leading up to this whole title reign, she hasn't been doing much. She's been a little off lately, and as far as Jade had pretty much her best match with Rhea. It seemed like they had a better chemistry. But Tiffany, what's going on with Tiffany? I don't think Tiffany was the right um, matchup with Jade. I don't know. They don't really mix well. Uh, this match could have been a SmackDown match. I understand that they want to get that title finally on the PLE. They finally did. It took a lot of time. To me, I don't even understand why they even have this title because it's not really doing much to elevate anybody. I'd rather see that title. I wish that title would have stayed on Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green, even though she had the ending. But I don't know. It seems like this title has just kind of been up in the air. It hasn't been. It hasn't been the main focus. It hasn't been what the Intercontinental title has been over there on the wall with Becky Lynch and everybody that she's been feuding with. So I don't know what's going on. But yeah, this match was definitely the low light of the night.
They need to deactivate the women's Intercontinental and women's United States titles straight up. They don't need them. They don't need them. It's too much. It's just become too much. And here's the other thing about the whole Night of Champions gimmick, as a premium live event. Every match on that card should have been a title match. Give King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring their own PLE. That's what they should have done. And every match on Night of Champions should have been a title match. If you deactivate the women's IC and US titles, respectfully, there's still enough championships on there to represent both brands to fill out the actual card and make it what it is. But they did. We had a steel cage match on there with Rollins and Breaker, and the two tournament finals. So the whole concept of this feeling like a PLE was thrown out the window. As soon as they announced Rollins and Breaker in a cage, the whole thing, I was like, okay, this is a glorified super show, house show. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. It's nuts to me. Eric, what was your low light of the night?
Gosh, probably the Trick Williams match. I hate to say it. I do like Trick, but Ricky Saints doesn't do nothing for me. I know we talked about that on our last episode of those call-ups. I wish they would have kept him and Ethan Page kept their feud going from NXT. Brought that up. That would have gave me a little more something with Ricky Saints. I know he's a Cody Rhodes guy, but I don't know. Ricky just doesn't do nothing for me. I am glad that they brought Chelsea out to Saudi Arabia. I like Chelsea Green, so I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
That pushed that match up a little bit for me, so I can dog on the Trick Williams match.
No, I hear you. I feel like with Ricky Saints, and Brian and I have had this conversation. He is on the unfortunate side of bad timing, and I correlate that with the debut or the call up and the sudden rise for Ethan Page, because there is a lot of similarities between Ethan Page and Ricky Saints, much like Powerhouse Royce Keys and Obafemi. If they had been separated in time, Royce Keys would not be overshadowed the way that he's being, and that's unfortunate. It's a whole timing thing, man. And I feel that with Ricky Saints, because the dude's got talent. The dude has all kinds of potential, in my view. But I don't know. If Ethan Page wasn't doing what Ethan Page is doing right now, we would be talking more about Ricky Saints, in my view. Brian, what about you, real quick?
I agree with both of you two. I think they were both pretty disappointing. Um, uh, what you said about Chelsea Green, I agree with Eric. I think all of that is to be able to push. I think that's what we're going to get at War Games. I was telling Jason before we started. You can see they're starting to build two sides to this. Like, but even I would say where I'm glad Oba won, I would even put the Oba versus Jay match in there. I didn't care for the match. I thought the match was kind of terrible. But I've never really been a big fan of Jay matches because I feel you see the same three moves over and over again throughout the match. You can only see his super kick so many times. His spear, which I think is terrible. I don't know why he continues to do it. And a frog splash. Just those three moves on repeat.
Yeah, that's where you get into a situation where they really are feeding into the crowd response, because Jey Uso, even as he's teetering on the whole heel thing, like, he still garners one of the biggest reactions upon his entrance into the arena. Now the problem is, and I really noticed this last week on Raw, by the time he got to the ring and he was trying to cut a promo, he could not catch his breath. Like,
I've
I
been
don't,
saying that for a long time.
Yeah.
but it's getting worse. And I even went back, because I know you've said that, and I went back and I started watching like the start of his solo run, and there was a lot more enthusiasm, a lot more spring in his step. And then you get to last Monday night as he was doing this promo, and I'm just like, what is really happening? Because he's never been that winded to where, like, he was almost, he couldn't breathe, gasping for air in between words. I was like, oh man, what the hell happened? Is he psyching himself out? I don't know. But yeah, it's crazy because he's still popular and he still moves merch. But I mean, once the bell rings, it's not like he's expanding his repertoire, much to what Brian was saying. It's decreasing. He's become the three moves of doom, and it's in a loop, it feels like. So I can
I didn't want to
understand
talk
that.
about Night of Champions for too long, but real quick, just out of curiosity, what was your guys' opinions of the crowd? I thought they were going to be louder. At times I thought they were loud, but a lot of times I thought they were dead.
Such a weird crowd, and I tried to take into, because I pay attention to stupid shit like this, the acoustics of the building, because that, buildings that of that size that are built in other countries, they don't have the same standards that, codes and things of this nature that American buildings are. They're just not, fundamentally, they're just not. And I don't know if that plays a hand in the way the building was constructed as to how it holds the acoustics. But for whatever reason, I was thinking that it was going to be an outdoor stadium like they were in for the Royal Rumble, and this was their enclosed stadium or their arena. So yeah, it was a weird dynamic, and I don't know if the production was toying was messing with the audio levels in there or not. It was really weird. There were couples, moments where they had the green lights out and things like that. I'm like, oh, for Jey Uso's entrance. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I can get behind that. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Very up and down, it seems like. Even when Sammy won, like I expected a bigger explosion of noise, and we really didn't get that. Like there was a pop, but it wasn't the kind of pop that people that say that they were clamoring for a Sami Zayn world title win, especially in Saudi Arabia. Like they didn't match up. It kind of felt like a popcorn fart in church, if I can be honest with you.
Yeah. I will say that the video screen across the back I thought was insane. I thought that was awesome.
Nice touch.
It made everything look so much like big scale. Like I'd like to see that again at like a WrestleMania, which I guess we will, but
yeah, that's the other thing. They haven't said what building WrestleMania is going to be in. They haven't said if it's going to be in that outdoor thing that they built in 3 weeks for the Royal Rumble, or if it's going to be where they just had this PLE. But I mean, you're talking about WrestleMania. You're talking, the larger than life. They've gone to the stadium settings and things of that nature. That building holds 18,000 people.
Wasn't it under 20,000? There's no way they could keep it there.
I'm like, why would you have it in an 18,000 seat arena? I don't remember what the exact attendance was for the Royal Rumble, with that being an outdoor stadium setting, but it wasn't somewhere on the level of MetLife or US Bank Stadium or even Ford Field.
I don't even know what the pull would be there for tickets.
It's almost, I don't know.
Who knows? Like it may 18,000 may be what you get for fans there.
Yeah. Well, they're counting on people traveling all over the world to go to Saudi Arabia like everybody comes here.
They're wrong.
No, I know. I'm 100% with you on that. They're 100% wrong, and they're going to find out real quick. There's going to be a lot of papering done in Riyadh when it gets closer to WrestleMania, because I ain't going over there. And there's a large chunk of people that have zero interest out of principle alone to go over to Saudi Arabia. You could give me free tickets, free everything. Ringside, the whole 9 yards. I ain't fucking going. I ain't doing it. It's not worth putting my safety or my family's safety on the line. And I know that's controversial. Here's the problem. I don't care. I don't play. And like the whole thing is a bad idea. It's a bad idea. And I don't know why they're moving forward with this. But I know we spent way more time on this than we intended to. We're going to run a quick ad from one of our sponsors, and when we come back, we are going to do the top 10 most patriotic professional wrestlers in history on this very special Independence Day edition of the Fatal 4-Way. We'll be back right after this.
There's a toy store that's truly out of this world if you're looking for unique gift ideas.
Hey guys.
Plastic Planet in downtown Lapeer, Michigan has something for everyone, young and old. From current and vintage WWE figures to toys from our childhood, rare finds you won't find anywhere else, plus a large selection of comic books, wrestling magazines, and more. Visit Plastic Planet in the Lyric Mall in downtown Lapeer. Check them out on Facebook or call 248-752-0527.
Whether it's baseball, basketball, football, hockey, or any other sport, we break it all down every week on the Sports Reel podcast. Join Tim Sheridan, Eric Mendel, and Jason Klaus as they break down the latest Headlines, rumor, and innuendo in and around the world of sports. And if it makes headlines, it's fair game. But you never know who might stop by the show.
Bet, baby, they wanted me to jump out of a cake.
See if it was real.
It's the Sports Reel Podcast every Tuesday night, beginning in the 6 p.m. hour on the PFC Entertainment Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Riverside.fm. And we welcome you back to the Fatal 4-Way here on the PFC Entertainment Network. We wish you all a very safe and happy 4th of July holiday this weekend, and we certainly appreciate you spending part of your holiday weekend with us here on the Fatal 4-Way. So with that, we're going to run down a fun countdown here, the top 10 most patriotic wrestlers in professional wrestling history. And of course, with anything, with any list, it's subjective. It's going to be met with criticism. It's going to be met with snickers. It's going to be met with challenges. And look, that's what it's all about. We're here to have a good time with it. But when you look at the annals of professional wrestling, one of the constants in terms of building a storyline or building characters with any kind of substance to them is international conflict. You know, it's been one of those things, you know, because pro wrestling will mirror real life. And our parents, our grandparents, you know, when you talk to them and you ask them about their childhood, what they remember about pop culture back at that time, what was happening in the news. In some way, shape, or form, there was an international conflict where it was the USA versus somebody. Now, for us, for our demographic, we very much grew up in the Cold War era, where it was like we were the baby faces and the Soviet Union and Iran were the ultimate heels. Now, over the course of time, going back and forth through that time frame, you know, before it was the Japanese because of Pearl Harbor. It was Asians during the Vietnam War. It was Middle Easterns in the here and now because of the Gulf conflicts and things of this nature. And, you know, promoters, especially Vince McMahon, would dial into real life conflict to establish the characters that we as fans grew up and invested in, both on the heel side and the babyface side. So we're going to look at the quote unquote babyface side here, the most American patriotic wrestlers of all time. And we kick off the list here this week, gentlemen, at number 10 with a guy that, you know, some people will argue if he should even be on this list. He was looked upon as a carbon copy or an answer to the departure of another well-known, probably better-known professional wrestler that's going to be higher in this countdown, we'll say. But military-based gimmicks are they're a constant in professional wrestling. And in late 1985, upon the departure of Sergeant Slaughter, leaving the WWF over a contract issue with G.I. Joe at that time, the WWF decided to create their own military persona that they hoped would more than fill the shoes of the now absent Sergeant Slaughter. I present to you this week, gentlemen, number 10 with Corporal Kirshner. Now, he should have been a bigger deal than he actually was. And I felt like he was going to be something big, like he was going to be on the level of a Sergeant Slaughter, especially when they gave him a one-on-one match with Nikolai Volkov in a flag match at WrestleMania 2 in April of 1986. But shortly after that win over Volkov, Kirshner would be relegated to a jobber, losing every week to more established stars, singles matches, tag team matches. And even though he would have other success in other territories, like in Japan, Corporal Kirshner, for me, I don't know, he has a sentimental place in my heart. They made an LJN action figure of him, and was one of my one of my favorite toys of that line. We'll go around the horn here. Brian, do you remember Corporal Kirshner?
It's funny you mention this because I would always see him when I rewatched the WrestleManias. When I used to go to the video store and rent them off the shelves, and I had no idea who Corporal Krishner was until you just explained that. But I always remember him from that match, having that flag match.
Mm-hmm. Love that, dude. Q, you're smiling, so you remember Corporal, don't you?
I do. I do. This is a fan project, and it's unfortunate. He had a great look. I thought he had a great look, and just sometimes the promoter just gives up on something, and this was the case here, where the promoter just, as in Vince McMahon, gave up on this guy. Yeah, I do remember that flag match. That's probably the highlight of his WWF career. But yeah, that was a strong project.
Yeah, just too bad because from bell to bell, I thought Kirshner was a better worker than Slaughter. And I wanted so much for him. His promos were cool. The vignettes of him jumping out of the airplane, and we hadn't seen anything like that. And they really did try to push him as the new Sergeant Slaughter without saying that's what he was. But I mean, the camouflage and the whole night, like you knew that's what it was. Eric, I know your fandom kind of is more of the current here and now. And Kirshner's day was back in the 80s. Do you know this guy at all?
Yeah, I don't. I've actually never even heard of him. I'm
Well, see,
young.
this is entertaining and educational.
I was born in '87. I probably started watching around '94. So I
That's a
got
big
like early Undertaker and HBK years. That's Bret Hart, all that.
Okay. Well, that puts it in perspective. So I'll know not to go with you with our number 9 selection because it is also an old school act. But listen, you talk about American patriotism. It really was on full display in the mid 80s. And with that, conflict with the Soviet Union, the conflict with Iran, it did lead into the very first WrestleMania for the WWF Tag Team Championship, where the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov would actually win the titles from one of the more popular tag teams in the world at that time. I'm talking about Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo of the U.S. Express under the management of Captain Lou Albano. This was the team that held the titles going into the first WrestleMania. The Real American theme that became synonymous with Hulk Hogan was actually used as the U.S. Express's entrance music for about a 2-week period before Hogan decided that he wanted that music after it was deemed that he could not use Eye of the Tiger. U.S. Express, Mike Rotundo, Barry Windham, real life brothers-in-law. Mike Rotundo, of course, the father of Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt. And Barry Windham, the son of Blackjack Windham. And legendary guys here, both individually and as a tag team. Brian, do you remember the U.S. Express?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's a great choice. It was one that I didn't think of because I honestly didn't even think of tag teams. But as soon as you started reading off the like the little part about it, like from the very beginning, the info on them, I was like, yeah. Because me and Q kind of tried to break down who we thought at least 10 different ones, and so far, I don't think we had either one of these.
Well, I'm going to be curious to see who did make your list once we go through the 10 here, because you got to think. Number one, all the information that I'm giving you on these selections, I promise you, I have nothing written down here. Everything is right off the dome in real time. Like I know what highlights I want to hit, but I'm giving you guys this information right off the top of my head in real time. Because like my fan, like I not only did I start watching wrestling in '83, but like I did my research prior to that, back to George Hackenschmidt in 1901, the first recognized wrestling world champion, all the way to this bullshit with Sami Zayn winning the WWE championship. But it's neither here nor there. Q, Mike Rotundo and Barry Windham, where are they at with you?
I'm excited that they made this list. I wasn't thinking about it, but to me, as a tag team, even though they finally made it to the Hall of Fame and they're starting to get their credit, I feel like they were underrated.
Do
I feel like they were underrated. People don't talk about them as much as they should. Um, them, using that. I'm gonna say one of the smartest things that Hulk Hogan did was to get that music because that is today the most iconic music of all time. And it's crazy that it was first used by the U.S. Express. And, but they had their run wasn't as long as it should be, but I'm glad that they made this list, and they are definitely it's well deserved that they're here.
Yeah, they really did. They were low key awesome. You go back, so they would win the titles in 1984. They would lose them to Sheik and Volkov at WrestleMania 1, regain the titles from them, and then lose them to the Dream Team, which was Brutus Beefcake and Greg the Hammer Valentine. That match, one of the best solid tag team matches I've ever seen, even in a losing effort. But in a losing effort, it demonstrated how good Wyndham and Rotundo were. Real life brothers-in-law, like they knew each other in and out. And man, that chemistry was off the charts. They didn't need Captain Lou Albano as their manager. They needed something for Lou Albano to do at that time. And he could talk, and you know what I mean? So it worked. It fit the package. But yeah, and you're totally right. Totally underrated. This is a team that does not get the just due. So when they did go into the Hall of Fame here a couple of years ago, I was so happy for them. And I felt like the timing was weird because we had just lost Bray. And instead of putting Bray Wyatt into the Hall of Fame, this was the company's olive branch to Mike Rotundo. I felt like they should have been in the Hall of Fame years ago as a tag team, but I don't make that call, right? All right, moving along in our countdown here, and we talk about Made in the USA. That brings up our number 8 selection, who was put in a very unenviable situation trying to fill the shoes of the absolute biggest name in the history of the WWF. Gentlemen, I want to take you back to 1993, where Hulk Hogan had left the WWF following his loss of the championship to Yokozuna at the King of the Ring. A few months prior to that, a heel burst onto the scene known as the Narcissist. And somehow or another, between his debut in late 92 up going into the 4th of July of 93, this guy had a complete change of heart. He decides to answer America's call, steps up to the deck of the USS Intrepid, and does what no other professional wrestler or athlete, for that matter, could do, and that was body slam the 505-pound WWF champion, Yokozuna. I give you, Made in the USA, Lex Luger. Now, this winds up becoming one of the biggest letdowns and disappointments in professional wrestling history. This set the stage for SummerSlam 93, held at the Palace of Auburn Hills. They spent months toting Luger from coast to coast in this bus, meeting the fans and this call to action to get the title shot against Yokozuna, setting up USA versus Japan in an international flavored main event for the WWF Championship. Luger wins the match. He beats Yokozuna by countout and never wins the WWF Championship. And it's just crazy to me that you put all that time and money and effort into building the next American hero. Luger says that he's the guy for it. He's ready for that spot. Clearly, he was not the guy. Clearly, he was not ready for that opportunity. I don't know if he psyched himself out because he's trying to replace Hulk Hogan, but I don't know. Lex Luger, Q, where were you at on Made in the USA?
Oh, man, I really don't have enough time to say everything I need to say about this guy. Lex Luger, another failed president. You can say, maybe they should have booked him to win that. I'm kind of glad that he didn't because I don't think he was ready for that spot either. The fact that they had him go in there against Yokozuna, win by countout after they've been trotted this guy in there, put him on that doggone bus for seemed like forever. Um, he celebrated as if he won the title. To me, it was the celebration. He celebrated like he won the title. And it made him look like a giant goof. Like, after that, I'm like, man, I can't get behind this dude. He don't even know what's going on. And, it's crazy because I was actually more of a fan of his as the narcissist. I was more of a fan of his when he went over to WCW and he was the total package. But this USA gimmick that was just pretty much him cosplaying as a USA guy, it was not it. He does not have the charisma like Hulk Hogan. He does not have the character. He cannot win the fans over with his promo game. He didn't have none of that. He wasn't even that good in the ring. And it was wild to me that they tried to hot shot this guy who clearly did not have it. I mean, the fact that they kept showing these vignettes of him on that bus, it made me laugh. And I remember watching the documentary about that. And they were talking about how much of a jerk that he was. He couldn't get to the gym. And he's like, they got me on this bus and I'm spending all these hours on this bus and I can't get into the gym and put myself together and all this stuff. He was a complete jerk. Everyone talking about how much of a jerk he was. He wasn't ready for that spot. He was the right guy. It was the wrong booking move to even try. And also, he was also competing with the uprise of Bret Hart. So a lot of people were getting behind Bret at the exact same time. Luger he was overshadowed.
Yeah, I think, and you could see that Vince was seeing that too. And that's why we got the whole double win at the Royal Rumble the next year. And both of them were getting an opportunity at the championship at WrestleMania 10. And it's just, you nailed it when you said cosplay because his heart was not in it. I was like you, I was a bigger fan of Lex Luger in the NWA before coming to the WWF as a heel, as a part of the Four Horsemen, because I felt like that was more naturally him, just a complete self-absorbed prick, as Lex Luger was. We walked into the Palace that night, and my dad went with us. And my dad's not a wrestling fan; like he watched it a little bit here and there with Jeff and I. But when he still felt bad about not taking us to WrestleMania 3 when it was at the Silverdome. So when SummerSlam came around at the Palace, he wanted to go with us, and we walked in, and you looked up in the rafters, and you could see all the red, white, and blue balloons hanging in the rafters. And my dad, he's like, "Oh, somebody winning the title tonight." All he did was see the balloons. He's like, "Who's winning the title tonight?" And I was like, "Holy shit!" So when everything happened and Luger won, the balloons fell, all the baby faces rushed out there and they put them up on their shoulders and stuff like that. Even my dad knew well, he didn't win the belt. Why is this happening? And I'm like, I know I didn't book this shit. Brian, what was your take on Lex Luger?
We picked him. We thought he would be on the list. Now that we've already had some that we said not make the list, I don't know if he should have made the list. It seems that we've all cared about him more as a heel. Thought he's better as a heel than a face. Um, Narcissist was cool. Actually, I thought he was even better as a heel as the pharmacist to Miss
Oh
Elizabeth.
my God. What?
But
Oh
that's all
man.
I have to say about that.
Eric, where are you at? Where are you at on Lex Luger, made in the USA?
I'm just loving watching you guys. I'm learning. This is fun to watch. I got nothing to add.
Okay. Well, I do. Listen, knowing what the dude is trying to do to put his life back together at this stage, like I do respect that. I'm glad they put him in the Hall of Fame. I'm glad to see him try to make amends, try to get right. Like I do appreciate that. But you know, back in the day, like we could do a whole episode on Lex Luger, if I can be honest with you. Um, more on that later on in the program. But be that as it may, let's move on here in the countdown. This one is weird to me. Just because the guy that makes the list, the persona that makes the list, is not the persona that made me a fan of this guy on a stupidly deep level. It starts out as one thing in 1990, and as the business started to change, to get more reality oriented as we moved into the Attitude Era, we had to make a shift. We had to stay current. We had to evolve with the times without totally abandoning what brought us to the proverbial dance. So I give you, gentlemen, number 7, the American Badass version of The Undertaker. Now, people love or hate this version of The Undertaker. I'll be honest with you. I prefer the dead man, the traditional dead man that we know. But in terms of that time, his return in 2000 to save The Rock at Backlash against Triple H. This was one of those moments where we waited and we waited and we waited, and there was these little hints, these little Easter eggs, like the dude is coming back, but we did not anticipate that when he did come back, it was riding a Harley. It was with biker clothes. It was like he was talking normal. There was no makeup under his eyes, but he was still the Undertaker. Brian, we'll start with you on this. The American Badass version of the Undertaker makes the list at number 7. Too high, too low, and where are you at with the change of presentation for Mark Calloway here?
I agree with you. Like my favorite version of the Undertaker is the Dead Man, but I enjoyed the American Badass version too. But my only question is if he didn't have the moniker American Badass, would he have made this list? I think
No.
it's just the fact that the American was in that one title. Like I don't think there was any patriotic thing about this.
Well,
So
every
I would
once in a
say,
while he did lean into that when he was wrestling Kali, when he was wrestling a few other people. Like he did incorporate the American flag
I would
into
say,
his
yeah.
presentation.
Currently of the ones that we've had there, yeah, I think he's in a good spot.
Q.
Well, run after the next did at his. So um, we'll say that you can do a top 10 of the Undertaker's returns. Where he came from at that gimmick, that to me was one of the greatest returns he ever made. Putting and saving the Rock against the corporation or DX, I think it was. Yeah, I think this belongs on the list because of you know, the American flag. He leaned into it in a different way. So it was almost like, he wasn't out there looking like Kurt Angle, or he wasn't out there, looking like the typical American red, white, and blue wearing. He did it in a different way. So I definitely support him being on this list. And I'm going to put him higher. I do prefer the dead man gimmick. And this gimmick here, when he first debuted, it did kind of run its course on me after a while. Before he turned into Big Evil and started doing that. I prefer the dead man gimmick, but yeah, we do have on this. We had some of his best, some good matches at that gimmick with this gimmick too. Some matches that he had with Kurt Angle. And then I think he was Big Evil at the time. He had the Royal Rumble spot with Maven. That's one of those iconic moments. But, yeah, I would definitely have him on this list.
It seemed like he had more freedom to expand his wings. He wasn't as constricted by presentation as the American Badass as he was as the Dead Man. You mentioned the Maven thing, which Maven as an individual, I have my opinions of. I kind of think he's a piece of shit, but that's just me. But he is what, in my view, made Jeff Hardy as a solo act. If they hadn't had that ladder match on Monday Night Raw, Jeff Hardy would not be held in the regard that he is as a single star. Undertaker as the American Badass or Big Evil is what made Jeff Hardy. And you can look at that time frame and see how much creative freedom he had from bell to bell. And he really took those opportunities to make new stars without worrying about damaging the equity that he had put into the Dead Man gimmick. So that's what I did appreciate about the American Badass portion of the Undertaker. Eric, were you a fan of the American Badass version here?
I'm with you guys. I prefer the Dead Man, but he was still on top of his game. He wasn't aged out at this point yet. He's like you said, he had some really good matches during this era.
Yeah, some of his best for sure. You're talking about eras in WWE. I want to take you back to 1997. Now we're getting into the thick of we're coming into the prefaces of the Attitude Era. Bret the Hitman Hart had just turned full blown heel, was reforming the Hart Foundation as a faction with his brother Owen, his brothers-in-law Jim Neidhart and Davey Boy Smith, and a very close friend of the family, Brian Pillman. This was the era where booking-wise, travel-wise, Monday Night Raw would be in America one week. The next week, they would fly over to Canada. So we started to get a teetering of Bizarro World, where in America, the Canadian wrestlers, this being the Hart Foundation, booed out of the building as Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Legion of Doom, Ken Shamrock, and Goldust were all emerging as the ultimate baby faces for the WWF. Then the next week they would go into Canada and it would flip-flop. The American wrestlers would get booed out of the building, and the Hart Foundation were absolute gold. I mean, they were royalty. Now, enter one of the most patriotic wrestlers on the scene in the world at this time, who had spent some time with the Global Wrestling Federation, then jumping to WCW, where he would get his first real major national exposure, gets the attention of Vince McMahon during this American versus Canada war. Enter the Patriot. The Patriot would become a focal point for a hot minute in 1997. He would be a challenger to Bret Hart's WWF Championship at the time. And it really said a lot because Vince didn't really at that time put a whole lot of effort into a masked wrestler. But the Patriot was super over, got over on the independent or the territories, the end of the territories, became part of a tag team combination with Marcus Bagwell in WCW, then coming over here to the WWF. The guy looked great. He performed great. I don't know why more emphasis wasn't put on him at this time, but still made his mark in a very pivotal point in WWE history. Brian, what's your opinion on the Patriot, and do you think they miscast him? Could he have been the WWF champion at this time, or just he was there to simply be a placeholder for Brett to use as a stepping stone?
I think he was a stepping stone for Brent or for Brett. Um, I I I understand that he rose up through the territories like he did, but I wish I could have saw some of those matches to see if they were different from what we saw of him in WWE. Um, Obviously, with the name the Patriot, he belongs on this list. But yeah, other than just being another person to elevate Bret Hart to where he was, I don't see him ever be like having what it would take to be champion at that point.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure what they were going to do with him. Like, I was shocked that they even brought him in. Like,
Yeah,
a lot of people were like, "Who's the Patriot?" They didn't pay attention to WCW. They sure as hell didn't pay attention to the GWF. But like, I saw this guy, very early on in the '90s, and I'm like, he could be somebody. He's got a great look. He was in shape. His promos were believable. Q, where were you at on the Patriot? Del Wilkes, as it were.
He was, I think timing kind of messed him up in WWF at the time. I understand, understood what Vince was trying to do, trying to strike, during this era versus Canada. Um, but he was going to be overshadowed anyway because really the big feud was Brett and Austin, Brett and Shawn, Brett and all the other guys that were already hot over there in the U.S. Patriot was not going to come and eclipse Stone Cold. He was not going to eclipse Shawn Michaels, and he couldn't even eclipse me. I mean, so I think it was just it wasn't the right time to bring this guy over. He would have worked a lot better. He probably would have did better than Lex Luger and Lex Luger's role. But who knows?
100%.
Who knows?
Oh man, I didn't even think about that. If they had brought the Patriot in '93 instead of him going to WCW and teaming up with Marcus Alexander Bagwell, and they put him in the Luger spot, that would have been the what ifs, because this guy that actually loved this country. Like, he served time, he was in the military. He was legitimate. Like, and you really got that feeling where that was the biggest thing with Luger. You could just tell he wasn't into it. He didn't care. He wanted the paycheck. He wanted the push. But yeah, the Patriot, yeah, bad timing for sure. For sure. Eric, any recollection of the Patriot or no?
No recollection. Based off your words, though, I'm going to check him out tonight and the U.S. Express. Those are the top two that have piqued my interest so far.
spend more time on the U.S. Express. Skip the Patriot.
Okay. Okay.
In my opinion, they're the ones that should be higher up more than anybody.
That's fair. That's fair. So, Brian, you were not a fan of the Patriot.
No, not really. I was never a fan of masked wrestlers, especially at that point. I'm more so now, but then I just thought it was a weird gimmick. He just seemed like a buff luchador, and I was like, I'm good without seeing him.
A buff luchador with a southern accent.
Yeah.
That's wrestling. All right. We're going to move into the top 5 here. We're going to break this list up in half. But before we get to the top 5 patriotic wrestlers of all time, let's take a moment and look at some of them international flag bearers that more than made their names in professional wrestling. And look, when you talk about a century's worth of history in pro wrestling, you're always going to leave people off, whether it's done on purpose or not, because of the impact that they may or may not have made. So we're going to spend a few minutes here and look at some of the ones who rose to the top, became the cream of the crop, if you were, in terms of international based professional wrestlers. I'm trying to be respectful here, obviously. So let's run through some of these. When you span the globe in professional wrestling over 100 years, these are some of the ones that stand out more than others in terms of the main events. In England, we have the British Bulldogs, the William Regal, Bad News Barrett. Obviously, Ireland, you had Becky Lynch, Finn Balor, and Sheamus. The Iron Sheik from Tehran, Iran, Jinder Mahal from India. The Russians are represented by the Koloffs, Nikolai Volkov, and Boris Zukov. And then from Mexico, the Mexicools, current Intercontinental Champion Penta, Hall of Famer Rey Mysterio, Hall of Famer Tito Santana. And then from Australia, Outback Jack, who preceded Rhea Ripley there, and Bronson Reed, and then Shinsuke Nakamura, Mr. Fuji, Hakushi, Io Sky, representing Japan, as well as Yokozuna, and then Canadians Bret the Hitman Hart, Dino Bravo, Adam Copeland, Trish Stratus, and Canada's greatest athlete, Iron Mike Sharp. One of those, if you know, you know. And then I felt bad because there was a lot of names on here that I'm like, man, I should have included this or I should have included that. So let's give them their little spotlight too. Canada's fabulous Rougeau brothers, the Great Khali from India, the Orient Express from Japan, Mongolia's Killer Khan, Polish power Ivan Putski, the Bushwhackers from New Zealand, Austria's Gunther, and the eighth wonder of the world from Grenoble and the French Alps, Andre the Giant. So some of the guys, and I realized, I don't know why it did not include the graphic because I put it on here, but from Glasgow, Scotland, one Rowdy Roddy Piper, and I'm pissed that it didn't add that graphic on there. But I can only do so much here. All right, let's move into the top 5. At number 5 is a guy we opened the list with by alluding to. This guy became the epitome of American hero, and not only transcended what he did in professional wrestling, but it allowed him to become a part of pop culture in terms of a very popular toy franchise, that being G.I. Joe. The ironic part, it would be the G.I. Joe deal that would end Sergeant Slaughter's first run with the World Wrestling Federation, but he would come back some years later. But he did make more than a name for himself as the strong-jawed Marine drill sergeant, Sergeant Slaughter, Brian. When you talk about patriots in professional wrestling, he's got to be one of those first handful of guys that is mentioned. But I feel like because of the character change in 1990 of him becoming an Iraqi sympathizer at a time where we were at conflict with Iraq, very early on during the Gulf War, really hurt his standing, his legacy overall. But still, you talk about Sergeant Slaughter, he does still resonate as a patriot. Where you at here with the former WWF World Champion?
I think I was a bigger WWE fan than I was a G.I. Joe fan. But Sergeant Slaughter being in the G.I. Joe cartoon actually was what got me to watch the G.I. Joe cartoon. I just tuned it in
100%.
because Sergeant Slaughter was on it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, 100% he deserves to be on this list. I think you're right. I feel like he does get a little knock with all the whole Iran stuff in the 90s. Um, Otherwise, yeah, he'd be right there in the Mount Rushmore of patriotic wrestlers for sure.
Q, where you at on old Sarge?
I'm a fan of I was definitely a fan of old Sarge. Yeah. One thing I hated though is probably I don't think it was his fault, but the whole Iraqi sympathizer gimmick that he ended up doing, I really hated that. That kind of destroyed what I was thinking about. But overall, yeah, Sarge was definitely a big deal, especially with that gimmick. That was a right gimmick for him, and he had that look too. It really worked for him.
Yeah, one of the most well-known pro wrestlers of all time. Like people knew who Sergeant Slaughter was. Presidents of the United States were fans of this guy. Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, huge Sergeant Slaughter fans. Went to the White House when Reagan was there. Like he was part of pop culture, and I'm with you, man. When he came back, number one, I was so excited when he was coming back to the WWF in 1990, and I didn't care if he was a heel. I cared when he abandoned America for Iraq. Like that really did bother me. And it was a huge blow to how I felt about him as a patriot. Take the heel face thing out of it. Like, you are Sergeant fucking Slaughter. What are you doing? Posting pictures. And I realized now, I didn't at the time because I was a kid. What are you doing hobnobbing with Saddam Hussein? You know what I'm saying? Like, you are a piece of garbage now. And I never got, or even when they were turning him back into a baby face a year later. I want my country back. I didn't give a shit. I was hoping like somebody would throw rotten eggs at him at that point because I was over it. But now, he's since long retired and he is in the Hall of Fame now, and he will be remembered primarily for his patriotism. But man, it is that dark chunk of time in his career that really did it took on a life all of its own. Eric, what was your opinion of Sergeant Slaughter?
Gosh, I still wasn't super into wrestling at this point, but uh, looking back, so I didn't live it like you guys, because you guys obviously hated the gimmick change. But man, that sounds like a genius heel turn. It sounds like he got so much heat from the audience. I think on the Hulk Hogan documentary, they talked about it a little bit. I might be confusing it, but just the amount of heat that he got from this gimmick change sounds like a golden choice by Vince McMahon.
We were at the age too where kids that we were friends with, their parents were still serving in the military at that time. So it really kind of hit. Like it really felt like he was a real traitor to the country.
Yeah, 100%. And the turn took on, I mean, it went so deep. Like Vince had to hire security to go over to Slaughter's house and escort his wife and children to an unknown location because they were getting death threats because people took it that seriously. WrestleMania 7 in 91 was supposed to be at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, and they were trying to fit 100,000 people in there. And this was an outdoor venue. And, reality says slow ticket sales was the reason why they changed venues in the middle of the promotion. The WWF will tell you it was because of security issues and the death threats that were coming for Sergeant Slaughter. Like, people allegedly were saying that they were going to fly over the stadium and drop bombs, like
Wow.
seriously, like try to kill Sergeant Slaughter. And so they moved the show from a 100,000 seat outdoor stadium to a 17,000 seat basketball arena across the street. And like, on paper, if you didn't know the backstory, you would have no idea, because it was a loud, boisterous crowd inside the LA Sports Arena for WrestleMania 7 that would be headlined by Sergeant Slaughter putting the title on the line against Hulk Hogan. But be that as it may, yeah, one of the biggest turns in wrestling history, and it really, really did some damage to the overall legacy of Robert Remus, who we know as Sergeant Slaughter. Now, that brings us to number 4. And number 4 is not what you would call your stereotypical superhero. But for those south of the Mason-Dixon line, this guy was God. He was royalty, because people believed in every word he said every Saturday evening at 6:05 on WTBS, especially as he was preparing to challenge Ric Flair for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. I give you at number 4, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. The common man, as it were. Dusty Rhodes is when you talk about the term the people's champion, Dusty Rhodes can really be called one of the first people's champions, of super popular, in the southern part of the United States. I mean, he made his name in the Northeast too, very early on in his career, having a series of matches with then world champion superstar Billy Graham. Very popular at that time. But man, when he came to the NWA under Jim Crockett Promotions, he really, I mean, a lot of it he booked himself in this spot, but it was because of the response he was getting from the fans. And when you talk about the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes is one of those guys that gets brought up. He's one of the first people that get brought up. If you are talking straight-laced pro wrestling and patriotism, especially with his creation of the Great American Bash, which would become a pay-per-view for WCW. But like, that started with Dusty Rhodes. Brian, where are you at with the American Dream, baby?
Yeah. I was always a fan. He I mean, it's funny we put him on a patriotic list. His son just got beat by Muslim.
That is ironic, actually.
But no, I think it's perfect. He was one of the ones that we thought for sure would be at this point on the list. His moniker, the American Dream, literally is the definition of why he's here. I felt like he's the type of person most people felt like represented them. Like you said, blue collar, American worker, son of a plumber. Yeah, he was like one of our, like, the chances you had, like that I want to go out there and like throw down with these guys, and there's somebody like me doing it.
No, for sure. Q, when you talk about iconic promos, those interviews that stand the test of time, like, it's become its own viral clip on YouTube. That 3-4 minute promo becomes part of wrestling lore. We often talk about the birth of Austin 316 in this realm. If that promo had not been cut, Steve Austin would not be who he is in terms of wrestling history. Dusty Rhodes has one of those promos, the Hard Times promo. And if you are a newer fan, Eric, I'm talking to you. If you are a newer fan and you have never seen or heard this promo in its entirety, I implore you to go on YouTube, put in Dusty Rhodes Hard Times promo, and just watch and listen. Listen to the passion in this man's voice. And it was not written, it was not scripted, it was straight from the heart. Cue the Hard Times promo. Is that what solidified Dusty Rhodes as the American dream, as an American hero for a generation of fans?
I believe that's definitely part of it. Thing I'll say about Dusty Rhodes and his ability is everyone that we have listed, this, he has the most charismatic character out of everyone on this list so far. This guy oozes with charisma. The way he delivers his promos, it's not even just about what he says, it's the way he delivers every promo that he does. And I can easily tell that he is being himself. And he is just elevating himself higher than, it's almost like putting yourself on a tin, He is, it's easy for him because that's who he is. And people can relate to him because he has that American working class spirit. And he's a guy that he doesn't look like Lex Luger. He isn't chiseled like he is not big like Hogan. He looks like the dude that's running the cashier at the gas station down the street or at the Walmart around the corner. So he looks like someone who is working as a plumber, or he's the American plumber. He looks like a working guy. He looks like everyone's father nowadays, and it's crazy because when you have that character and you can relate to that character, live through that character. And I believe that's what a lot of people were doing during that time. And they were just living vicariously through Dusty Rhodes as he was going against all the evil powers. And even when he came over to uh, humiliate and all that other stuff, he overcame that because he was over with his charismatic character. You cannot defeat charisma. If you're charismatic, you're gonna get over and you're gonna get connected with the crowd. And he had the ultimate connection out of everyone that we have mentioned before this. He had the ultimate connection with the crowd.
No, 100%. 100%. And I'm glad you mentioned the body thing because he didn't look like your typical pro wrestler. He did look like the plumber that would come work on your house or the trash man that was emptying the cans at the curb or what have you. And that was part of his appeal. But once he got into the ring, excuse me, and the bell sounded, that bionic elbow, like all of it, like it was a presentation unlike anything else you'd ever seen. Eric, Dusty Rhodes, like I know, you pay attention to Cody Rhodes. I'm sure you're familiar with Gold Dust. But how familiar are you with Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream?
I know some of his promos. I have seen bits and pieces of matches, but I think Q said it like best. Sounds like his charisma was off the charts. That and from what I've seen, I don't know how many better speakers, how many better men on the mic have been in this business.
No, not many. I mean, he's on a lot of Mount Rushmores in terms of best promos in wrestling history. He and Jake Roberts, low key, man, like those promos resonated. And that's what made Dusty Rhodes so special, so important, and so crucial for Jim Crockett Promotions at that time. Like not just because he was booking, he had the pencil, but I mean, that's just how the audience, the paying audience, responded. You go with where the response is. And that's what made Dusty Rhodes so special. You talk about special, that moves us into number 3 here. What makes this next entrant so special is he's legitimate, straight up legitimate. It gets no more real than this guy, based on what he did in the various aspects of his athletic background that ultimately led him to the World Wrestling Federation in 1999, making his debut at the Survivor Series in 99, which, as a sidebar and trivia note, was held at the Joe Louis Arena here in Detroit, Michigan. There's been a handful of wrestlers, professional wrestlers, who came to this genre of sports entertainment from the Olympics, whether it be powerlifting in the terms of Mark Henry or Ken Patera, or in this case, as an amateur wrestler, number 3, none other than Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, one of the absolute best to ever lace up a pair of boots, to ever put on any headgear on the Olympic level or the professional level. When you talk about legitimate badasses, when you talk about legitimate American heroes, you've got to talk about Kurt Angle. Pound for pound for a long time, and I will go to bat against anybody about this. For a good chunk of time, Kurt Angle was the absolute best professional wrestler in the entire world. Better than Bret Hart, better than Shawn Michaels, better than John Moxley, better than anybody. Nobody could touch Kurt Angle from bell to bell. Brian, let's start with you.
I agree. I'm actually in the process of watching a lot of the pay-per-views that I missed when I stopped watching from like that 2008 to 2018 period, which is a lot of the matches where Kurt like ended up winning championships and stuff like that. So it's cool going back seeing what I saw of Kurt, which I felt like he was pretty far along in his career at that point too. He just didn't take that next level. And like so now I get to rewatch that. It's great to see. Am I right? Didn't he win the Olympic gold with a broken neck?
With a broken freaking neck.
Like that, yeah, like I mean, what a story.
Like the dude, like listen, not only did he win the Olympic gold medal in wrestling with a broken neck, legitimate broken neck, the dude broke his neck 3 other times in the WWE, ring. One against Brock Lesnar on SmackDown, and I remember what it was their Iron Man match, and I remember that spot, the way Kurt went into the turnbuckle, and his head went. It was sick, and I'm like, he gets broke his goddamn neck, and sure
So when
enough,
you got big, powerful necks like me and Kurt, they can take a couple breaks.
Q, we'll go ahead and ask you, brother. Kurt Angle.
Man, let me tell you, Kurt Angle, Kurt Angle. See, this is the reason why I don't like freaking Goldberg. Because if we didn't have Goldberg retiring Bret Hart or ending Bret Hart's career, we were what 1 year away from possibly getting Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle. I know Bret wasn't there anymore, but imagine Bret Hart making his triumphant return to WWF, WWE, and him and Kurt finally lock it up, man. I'm telling you, that would have been a classic. But anyway, yeah, Kurt Angle was definitely just a legit American warrior. I mean, that dude was a bad dude in the ring, and he was definitely the best bell to bell wrestler possibly almost ever. If you make a top 10 of best in ring performers, he is definitely on that list. Kurt Angle, not even the biggest dude, man. And it's crazy because we don't realize how small he actually is. He's not that big, but he carries himself.
5'10", 230 pounds.
That's it. And he carries himself like he's the biggest dude in the room, the biggest dog in the room. And I mean, a guy that made the ankle lock famous. I mean, I'm not giving Ken Shamrock that credit. I mean, it's definitely a Kurt Angle thing. Kurt Angle had some of the best matches with Brock Lesnar, best matches with Chris Benoit. I mean, those matches were classic. He even gave Rey Mysterio his best match. I mean, it's insane the body of work that this dude has. And then not only that, his character work. This guy played not only a comedic character and still made it to the top as a comedic character, winning the WWF championship in his first year. He transformed himself in, I think it was, what is it, '03, when he became the wrestling machine, and he started, I mean, just destroying people. He went bald and just went crazy. Is that a thing? You just go bald and go crazy? I mean, other than that, like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Listen, Brian and I were we were timid. We kind of kept to ourselves until we started losing our hair, and then we got bald, and now we don't give a fuck, if I can be honest with you. So yeah, there is some sort of correlation there, for sure.
See it.
Hey, you forgot Kurt Angle's biggest accomplishment too, or a reason why he should be on this list. He's brother-in-laws with the Punisher.
Oh well, I mean, right there it is.
Is he?
John
I mean,
Bernthal and him are brother-in-laws.
Oh,
John Bernthal's married to his sister.
I had no idea.
Eric, you familiar with Kurt Angle's work?
Oh, of course. He might be one of the he's top 5 best wrestlers of all time. Easy. Technical wrestler might be the best, right? Him, Benoit, Eddie Guerrero's up, he's not as technical, I guess, but
He is.
and he does the promo work to go with it. I can't sing the praises. I mean, you guys already sang all the praises. He's one of the best.
Yeah, I mean, he checks all the boxes. He really does. He checks all the boxes. We're not going to see another Kurt Angle. He was a once in a lifetime talent, and people don't put that tag on him for one reason or the other. But if you really break it down and you really make a list of what makes a successful pro wrestler, especially, he trained his whole life to keep his back off the mat, and then he gets into sports entertainment, professional wrestling, where you are trained to attack the mat with your back. So to see him make the transition that he did, and as seamless as he did, that's why you're never going to see another one like him. You just won't. He got it. And what sucks about the Kurt Angle story, there's no telling how much more he could have done if he hadn't become addicted to drugs and alcohol. Like, it really took years away from him. And it's so unfortunate. But, he's come out of that now. He's in a much better place mentally, physically, and all that. And I love that for him. But, God, what could have been? A Kurt Angle Bret Hart match would have gone down as one of the greatest professional wrestling matches of all time. Straight up. I mean, if Goldberg hadn't ended Bret Hart's in-ring career and Kurt didn't go down the path that he did, if they would have found a way to meet up, man, that would have been a clinic in every sense of the word. Just straight up. Now, that brings us to number 2. And full disclosure, this guy was at number 1. But I started thinking about what happened to his career after leaving WWE and jumping, one of the many in this era, to jump to WCW. And while he did bring over his character that made him famous in WWE, the booking decisions at WCW, i.e., Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara, kind of much like what we talked about with Sergeant Slaughter, where you had the All-American, and then you're going to turn him into a foreign-based sympathizer. Completely changed his physical appearance, changed his presentation, went from waving an American flag to waving the Canadian flag, which really, much like Slaughter, really was a hit to the overall legacy. But you cannot dismiss what this man did for the majority of his run. I give you at number 2, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. He came in to WWE after a very successful run in Mid-South Wrestling, legitimate badass, mixing it up with the likes of the one-man gang, Ted DiBiase prior to becoming the $1 Million Man. But straight up, he was very Bruiser Brody-esque prior to coming to WWE in 1987. Or 1986, late 86. But when he came in, he became the American hero, going right to war with Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik. Throughout his run, whether it was Sheik and Volkov, whether it was Boris Zukov, whether it was Dino Bravo or Yokozuna, the American flag was prominent part of Hacksaw's overall presentation and became the face of American patriotism for a long time in WWE. So he comes in at number 2, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Q, we'll start with you. Where you at on all Hacksaw?
I was really hoping you had him high. Definitely, he embodies that American flag because every time you see him, he's waving that flag and he's got that 2x4 over the shoulder, and that's what I really remember with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I did follow him, in his time with WWE. I followed him in WCW, seeing what he did there. They didn't really put any stock behind him in WCW. I seen how they just kind of he was mainly on what is it, Saturday night? What is the Saturday show that they had on TBS? Seemed like
WCW Saturday night.
Yeah, WCW Saturday night is where I really remembered him on the WCW program. They didn't really shine a light on him at all. But the fact that he was always over when it came to him always living that gimmick. I mean, he was coming down there and you can hear him, "Oh, USA," and I mean the fans were on board. And I remember being at home, USA, I'm over there cheering with him. So he was very energetic, and he was very enthusiastic in that role, and I think that's what really really carried him. The fact that he lived it, you can tell that was him being him. If you ever see him do some of the signings and everything that he does after his career was over, he's the same dude. I mean, he was always the same guy. He'll have his little patented 2x4 and American flag, and he's still holding on to a couple of strands of hair. I mean, he is the same dude, and I love it.
Yeah, it was what kept him from the number 1 spot for me was this bullshit where he joined Team Canada in WCW. Shaved his beard off, cut his hair, like the Canadian outfit, like nothing. And I'm not disparaging Canada, but you're taking Mr. USA. I guess that's another guy I could have used, Tony Atlas. Sorry about that. Actually, I'm not sorry because that dude's a piece of shit too. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, though, becoming a Canadian sympathizer, like the way they went about it, changing his whole persona, it wasn't him. It wasn't him, and it just completely took me out of the whole Hacksaw Duggan thing, and it really took me out of WCW. Because it's like, how are you going to do that to this guy? Like, you brought him over because he's a name. You brought him over because he's Hulk's buddy, and this is what you do with him. Why? Just because you can. Just for that shock value. This is the same creative team that took the mask off Rey Mysterio. And it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Now, granted, this wasn't Jim's choice, I'm sure, but like, that is a part of his history, and that is what kept him from the number one spot. Because, like, when I told Samantha I was doing this episode, and I told her what the list was, Hacksaw was at number one. And then when I showed her the graphics after I made the overlays, she goes, "Wait a minute, I thought that guy was number one." I'm like, he was, but here's why I changed it. And even, she didn't watch wrestling. She doesn't watch wrestling, but like, the way I was able to explain it, she got it. She goes, "Okay, I get it." And, he shouldn't be number one. So you made the right call. So, it is what it is. Eric, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, was he your hero?
We talk about core memories, right? And he's one of my first core memories. He's like one of the first, probably the first person that's like gave me that American pride, that patriotism. Just seeing him carrying the flag and the USA chants, like Q was saying. My young brain doesn't remember the matches as much, but man, that stuck with me and gave me that, I'm proud to be an American feel. And yeah, he's always been one of my favorites for that reason.
Brian, what would you say his most remembered rivalry is going to be? Is it Sheik and Volkov, or is it somebody else? Maybe Andre the Giant?
I mean, it could be Andre, but that's the thing with Hacksaw. Like, that's why he's so high up on this list. I feel like I think the patriotic matches is stick in your mind more. Like, when you were going to ask, I figured when you were going to ask me about him, my response was my '80s memories are like 80s wrestling is Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Like, and there wasn't a time that there wasn't any type of foreign invader threat in WWF at that time, that if they were making a team, Hacksaw wasn't a part of that team. Like, whether it was a Survivor Series match or if it was just a tag match, like, if you needed help and there was some foreign body coming to like attack like the American wrestlers, they always reached out to Hacksaw for good reason. Like, he's what, like, I would not have been mad if he was number one. I get with the whole thing with WCW and the Canadian thing, that makes sense too. But yeah, I wouldn't argue it either way.
Yeah, it was a tough call. It really was, because I shit you not, when I started this list, Hacksaw Jim Duggan was the first one I wrote down. And that's saying something when you consider who we're about to talk about at number one. So for a good minute, like, Hacksaw was the number one guy. And, and again, the whole Canadian thing. And also, I do know that wasn't his choice. That's what he was told to do. But I don't think Sergeant Slaughter asked to be an Iraqi sympathizer either. And not only did it give him his WrestleMania main event, it gave him his one world heavyweight championship in professional wrestling. That's something Duggan never got. He never got a solid run with a championship in the WWE, but he didn't need it either because he was that over. Now in WCW, he would become the United States champion, winning the title from Steve Austin in 12 seconds, if you can believe that. Prior to Stone Cold, but like winning the TV title over there by finding it in a trash can, and I don't know, man. The way they handled Hacksaw was kind of gross, if I can be honest with you. But he does still. I mean, it's still strong enough in patriotism where he lands number two, second only to our number one. I don't even know what else I can say about this other than he was the real American for a generation of fans. The one and only, the immortal Hulk Hogan. Comes in at number one in a time where professional wrestling was really expanding into pop culture. Hulk Hogan was front and center. And his rise to the WWF Championship in 1984, you look at the roster at that time, a lot of international superstars adorned the roster, capped off by the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. Later on, I mean, it is a who's who of foreign-based wrestlers, whether it be Killer Khan or Kamala, Andre the Giant, Yokozuna. Hogan faced them all. And it was the training, it was the saying your prayers, it was eating your vitamins, it was believing in yourself. But it was to be a part of this American pop culture phenomenon we know as professional wrestling. We know as the World Wrestling Federation at that time. We knew as Hulkamania. Hulk Hogan, for a generation of fans, he was the ultimate real life superhero. And, it wasn't out of the ordinary to see him either carrying the American flag or every once in a blue moon, he would show up and wrestle in his blue or his white gear centered around the American made logo, which I adorn in tribute, not only for the 4th of July holiday, but, especially this year, we're almost coming up on a 1-year anniversary of losing Hogan later this month. So it's, kind of a way to pay tribute to him as well. Q, the immortal Hulk Hogan at number one. Is this a good call, or would you have made a switch here?
I think this is a good call, and I also want to commend you for having the graphic of Mr. America on there as well. I dug that. I dig that. We know who it is now. So yeah, Hogan being number one.
I went ahead and ripped the top off for you for that. You're welcome.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, Hogan being number one is definitely well deserved. It's definitely a given, really, in a lot of people's minds. This is one of the greatest runs of all time. Him in this character. I mean, it spanned it over two different companies when he went over to WCW, still having that same American gimmick before switching over to the NWO gimmick. Hogan had two of the greatest runs in two different decades in two different companies. Nobody else can ever say that. So I think that's
And
nobody can ever say that. So I think that's a testament to the hard work that he put in. And definitely, he had two of the most iconic theme songs of all time. And Real American, just like I said earlier, was definitely one of the smartest moves to snatch up that song from the U.S. Express. I think that was perfect for Hogan. That fit Hogan. When you see him walking out, you see all those iconic entrances of him walking out. If he's donning the American flag or not, is he's walking out and you hear that music playing in the background. You know that if you're an anti-American or if you're any type of foreign heel out there, that you better watch out because Hogan is coming for you. And it was definitely no place for the heel anti-American or foreign character. There was no place for you when Hogan was coming out. I mean, you know what? If I was wrestling during that time, I would say, oh yeah, I'm a Nigerian. Uh, I'm a Nigerian guy or something. I would have said I was just the main event with Hogan, just to
right.
get in the ring with Hogan. I would say, yeah, I'm from Nigeria, brother. You know, Get in the ring with Hogan. That's how you get in the ring with him. Just you have to be you have to be crazy, you know. And that would be me. That would definitely be me. Yeah, but Hogan, this was definitely the best American run in wrestling history.
You know, Hogan was so good in that role, and I specifically remember this. Memorial Weekend of 1987. See, Hogan never wrestled on Saturday morning. You saw him on Saturday night's main event. You saw him on the few pay-per-views that they had at the time, or you had to pay a ticket and go see him at your local arena. But every Memorial Weekend on that Saturday morning Superstars, he wrestled. And he was so good in the American hero role. He made you believe Cowboy Bob Orton, who was straight up, cowboy. You know what I mean? Like straight up from Texas and the whole he made you feel like Bob Orton was a foreigner. that's how good Hulk Hogan was in that role. Eric, what do you remember as Hulk Hogan as an American hero?
I'm going to speak to him more as a person. God, the amount of make-a-wishes, the schools, the say your prayers, eat your vitamins. He's changed so many lives. He's for the better. For the better. How many kids listen to those words and are better people now because of him? That's you can't do a much better service to America than that, right? So, man, I know they ran him ragged. They ran him ragged doing all these meet and greets, but he changed so many lives and made this country a better place. So, well deserved number one for Hulk Hogan.
All right. I appreciate that feedback, Brian.
Definitely made the better world a better place as long as you weren't a Nigerian. Again, special opinion about those. No, I honestly, I mean, this really, I mean, a little bit Q, but even more so you, Jason. I mean, how blessed are we to be born when we were to be at the perfect age for Hogan? Like, we were the perfect ages for both runs. Like, whether it was his All American in WWE or even like the heel turn later for NWO. It feels special that we were just happened to fall into that time frame when we did, because I know how much it has affected you growing up, and I know how much it affected my childhood and stuff growing up, and the different things that I remember and I feel nostalgic about. It all circles around Hogan, and like, because if it wasn't for Hogan, I don't think we would have the WWE. It's at least nowhere near what we have. Not at all. That he carried that company, and like you said, we all looked at him as a superhero, not as a wrestler.
Right. No, I can't imagine what or if pro wrestling would look like, what it would look like if it would even be around if it wasn't for Hogan pulling the ship for the entire industry. And I know this can splinter off into a separate conversation. What was better? What was a better presentation at that time? Was it the over the top entertainment aspect of the WWF, or was it the ground and pound, more realistic approach that the NWA was touting at that time, which is what made guys like Dusty Rhodes and the Road Warriors and Magnum TA and the Horsemen, like people looked at them as legitimate athletes, where they looked at Hogan, Junkyard Dog, Andre the Giant, Big John Studd, as attractions. Make no mistake, the former could still hang with the latter. You know what I mean? Like, it just because they were presented in a certain kind of way didn't make them any less of badasses in my view. But yeah, the world is as old as it is, and we were fortunate enough to grow up in a time where we got to experience from start to finish, man, like this whole Hulkamania boom, and not just Hulkamania, but what it did for an entire industry. Turned it from a laughing stock into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Hulk Hogan and his influence has to be taken into consideration, or we would not be having this conversation right now. Vince McMahon's claim to fame would not have been in the wrestling space. It would have been in boxing, or it would have been in some regards MMA. You know, he would have
XFL.
Yeah, I sure shit wasn't going to be the XFL.
About that
Bodybuilding. He tried to.
Yeah,
Yeah, the bodybuilding. Yeah, that didn't work out.
ask Lex Luger about that too. That's how he came into the Titan Sports Gold.
Yep.
Another story for another time. Who did I miss? Brian? Q?
The two that I thought we might seen on the list were Glenn Jacobs, Kane, or Jesse the Body Ventura, because they both served as governmental roles.
It's a good point.
Those are the two that I mentioned that I thought we might see.
Q?
Future man on this list could be we might see a Chad Gable.
Chad Gable,
yes. On this list.
Yeah, I totally agree with
Gable. Yeah, and there's going to be people that's going to put Cody Rhodes on the list as well. Yeah. I know, but he's going to make some fans list out there.
Listen,
he's not on
Cody
my
Rhodes has a spot. Did Q freeze up? Oh, there he is. Okay.
Am I there?
He's moving.
Okay, I froze. Yeah. See, I can't say Cody Rhodes without freezing up. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, for sure. For sure. Eric, did I miss anybody?
No, just Chad Gable that we all agreed on there from Gulf of America.
What about Jack Swagger?
I hated Jack Swagger.
Zeb
Terrible. Did not like none of that.
These are
not... No. I would put Booker T's G.I. Bro on there before I put Jack Swagger on there.
Oh, I didn't even think about that one. Okay. Duly noted. Duly noted. All right. Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for your input on this, and for those who tuned in here to a very special presentation of the Fatal 4-Way here on the PFC Entertainment Network. We will be returning to the airwaves of Orion Neighborhood Television in 2 weeks' time on Friday, July the 17th, beginning at 6 p.m., and you can look for Orion ONTV on Facebook and YouTube. And we're very much looking forward to getting back to the studio, hanging out with Joe Johnson. He just came back from vacation, so I'm looking forward to catching up with him and hearing some of the amazing adventures that I'm sure that he was on during his time out west.
Is it true he got married?
What?
Is it true he got married out there?
No, but he did get engaged to.
That's what I meant. Yeah,
Heather Locklear.
Heather Locklear.
Yep. Go on his TikTok, Joe Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yep. He's got it on there. He proposed to Heather Locklear and she accepted. So technically they're engaged.
I think we dedicate the next show to him.
I mean, we probably should, right? We should make them something like this. Here nor there. Anyway,
or something. What was that award he won? The Man of the City, or was it Man of the Month or something?
Yeah. Citizen of the Month.
Citizen of the Month. There it is.
Yeah. Man of eternity, if you can lock that down, but be that as it may. If you haven't done so already, check out our online store, pfcstore.printify.me, for all the latest merchandise featuring the logos and designs of this show and all the other great shows that we have on the PFC Entertainment Network. And as programming notes, check out the Sports Reel podcast live every Tuesday within the 6 o'clock hour on the PFC Entertainment Network on Facebook, YouTube, Riverside.fm. And with that, go out, be awesome to yourselves and to each other, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time, July the 17th at 6 p.m. on ONTV for the next episode of the Fatal 4-Way as a part of the PFC Entertainment Network.